It says starting recording, but I don't see it recording. It's recording.
See, when I envision you, that's the last thing I think of. That thought never enters my thought process, you being nervous.
Really?
Yeah, or jerky, yeah.
Thanks for the compliment. You know what's funny, man? So when I first got nervous, for some reason I had a good couple-year run there. You know, where I wasn't that nervous. And people were attracted to that, specifically the old timers, you know? So
Yeah.
me and Boogie were in Evansville, Indiana, and we had to spend the night there, which was weird. For some odd towns that we were running in Memphis Thursday and Friday. And, I had the pickup truck. Did you ever see the pickup?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, you didn't. It was gone by the time you saw it. But anyway, I bought this fucking gorgeous 87 Ford XLT Ranger, and it was the showroom car. So it had this Delmar package on it, made by a company called Delmar, you know?
Uh-huh.
And I didn't have a fucking cap on the back of it, so we went into a weird gym, a strange gym out of nowhere, and it was beautiful when we went in, and there wasn't any windows or anything, and when we came out, it was pouring rain all over our gear.
Oh.
So from that point on, something broke in me, man. I've been nervous and jerky ever since.
Jeez.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah, I can't believe that's what did it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a little, maybe it wasn't that. Maybe it was just I was nervous and jerky and holding it in, so I think that was it.
You know, I don't remember you being that nervous or jerky when I first met you.
I think something broke after the divorce too, maybe.
But then again, you had a lot more irons in the fire. You had a lot more shit going on, so I wasn't really, in the inner circle. So,
What do you mean? What did I have going on?
Well, I don't know yet. You were married. You had kids. You had 2 businesses. You had a lot going on. I never really was privy to. You didn't have the time to sit down and go, oh, geez, I'm nervous. I'm jerky. God, you wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't have been privy to any of that if it was going on.
I think I was just always in a constant state of shock. Back then. Yeah, one point. Huh?
You were just always walking around with the 1,000-yard stare?
Yeah, semi-shock. I didn't know how fucked up I was, you know?
That's hilarious.
I knew something was coming down the pike, but I wasn't sure what it was.
Oh, no. Come on. Stop it.
Yeah, man. I was pretty smart, though. When you met me, I consolidated my business into the training facility. Was I still doing WCW security then?
No, when I started, WCW was just about to go out of business or had. It was pretty close.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. Well, either way, you weren't doing it.
Well, let's see. So I had the training facility. I had my regular business. I had my subcontractors. Also, I had the TV going, so I was producing that television.
Right.
And then we were running all those tapings, and I was training you guys on top of it.
Yeah.
And I actually did have that WCW developmental deal on the desk right when the doors closed, you know.
So before Barrington, is that your first training?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Did you always have your business out of there, or did you have your business somewhere before that?
I had my business in Palatine.
Okay. Would you have would you have an office, or what'd you use it for?
Yeah, well, I started with you wouldn't believe where I started. I was really smart now that I think about it with optimizing. But yeah, I had 2 offices in Palatine.
And then you just moved it all to Barrington?
Yeah, I downsized, and that's when I really learned how to optimize in business.
Yeah.
One day I woke up and said, what the fuck am I
Let me
thinking?
ask you this, because I mean, really, I guess it was an actual, it wasn't a storage unit. It was an actual, what would you consider that space?
It was an industrial space with an office.
Was there any issues getting all those phone lines hooked up in there or anything?
Not at all.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. So that was industrial space. Yes.
Yeah, and I had a little bit of money then, so, having someone come in and do whatever the fuck I needed with the phones and the computers wasn't an issue.
Yeah. But I mean, it was set up to do it, kind of.
I had it. I had it set up to do it. At that time, the rent was very reasonable. I do a lot of shopping before I make a move like that.
Yeah. What did you pay for that building?
I think then I was paying $1,000 a month.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, today it's probably $3,000 over there because it was like 2,500 square feet and then an office.
Yeah. Yeah, everything's so expensive out there, man.
Oh, it's fucking horrible now.
Crazy.
Horrible.
But I mean, even from Woodstock to Belvedere, like, is there really that much of a difference? It's only 30 minutes.
Yeah, if that. Yeah, Woodstock is reasonable. Belvedere is very reasonable.
Yeah, Woodstock, but there's a big jump between Woodstock and Belvedere.
What do you mean? As far as rents go?
Yeah, I mean, just because I've toiled with the notion of moving out to Woodstock, and it's noticeably more unless you fall into a deal, sign in the yard or something like that. But if you're just gonna look at people, just as far as what people are advertising online,
oh, it's horrible.
It's probably you could probably get the same space for, like something like, let's say, even if you wanted a 2-bedroom apartment in Woodstock, you're not going to find anything cheaper than $1,200-1,300.
Yeah, you really got to look now.
Yeah.
If you keep looking, you'll see something more reasonable. Check out Craigslist, but Craigslist and YouTube, Facebook, they're fucking each other up, so nobody can find anything now.
How's that?
They're just both playing to the same market, and not every listing is going up. And Craigslist is getting spammed like a motherfucker with these rental companies. Even if you go and put it in Belvedere, Illinois, you're going to get 70% Chicago apartments.
Right. I
don't know how that's possible. But I guess, Craigslist, how the fuck do they make money? It's not really a money maker.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe they don't. I don't know how they finance that.
No, I don't either. But you can tell they don't put anything into it anymore like they used to.
Right.
So, yeah, it's hard, and nobody reads the fucking paper anymore.
Well, like I said, the best deals I've ever found, I just had to get in the car and drive around. It's usually somebody, because if there's a sign in the yard, they're probably not advertising it. That's their only advertising,
Like that.
But seriously, they're probably going to put a sign in the yard for a month, and if they don't get someone to buy, then they'll advertise. Anybody that takes the time to do that, usually that's a better deal. All the best deals I've ever found on anything have been just self-advertisement like that.
Well, what I like about Belvedere is you guys got a lot of word of mouth. You're more of a tight-knit community.
I guess.
Well, no, if something comes up, you stand a better chance of hearing about it through a person than you do on an ad. So just keep looking. Well,
you actually have to talk to people for that to happen, so that kind of just puts me out of the run. I'm just...
Well, look how you happened upon your vehicle,
Yeah, I know.
For example, and that's a steal.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
yeah.
It's not a not presentable beater either. It's a very presentable beater.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Good truck.
So, what I'd like to talk about today, man, is Jarrett.
Yeah. So, what happened?
I have no idea. Remember I told you a few years ago I thought something was wrong. So what I loved was all at the same time, Mr. Electricity, Steve Regal, Jerry Jarrett, and Kevin Von Erich all got on Twitter. And that was cool because they're old guys that are trying. You know what I mean? Trying to keep up. And that was a way to communicate with both of all three of them. But particularly, I would talk to Jerry, and it was funny to watch them. They tried to figure out they would fuck up. They thought they sent you a message, but they posted instead. But
Right.
I enjoyed it. But I started to notice something was up with Jerry then. Remember when I said that?
Yeah.
And he meant to DM it to me, but he messaged me. He goes, Randy, I just want to tell you, I miss our Sunday talks.
Yeah.
And I thought that was fucking great because, it was for the longest time, he and I would talk on Sundays. After 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, I believe Jerry would go to church and do what normal people would do on a Sunday and then have Sunday dinner. And then after Sunday dinner, he'd go into the office.
Uh-huh.
And that was pretty cool. And what's cool is to find out later that a lot of time during that time, he was talking to Vince.
Sure.
So, I guess I should start with my relationship with Jerry. For those of you that don't know, I half-ass trained at Windy City Pro Wrestling, but Sammy DeCero never gave me the time of day, and I was primarily broke in by Sonny Rogers and retrained. Then from there, the way I'd handle myself is Sam had the only ring in the area. So you would end up getting guys in there that would come to work out in the ring. Let's say the Texas Hangmen were going to Puerto Rico, they would come down and get some ring timing. The Terminators, they would come in and do that shit, and a host of others. But anyway, the way that would work out was everybody was afraid to get in the ring with them and let them try their moves on them, and I was the first one with my hand up, so I became a favorite. So at the time, Sam was bringing in Steve Regal. He was bringing in Colonel De Beers. He was bringing in Rose and Summers. He was bringing in the Terminators. He was bringing in the Hangmen,
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough, too, the way I handled my business, and I guess showing balls and humility, I became a favorite. And the more the names liked me, the more Sam hated me. Because they would always come in and Sam would have them booked with this one or that one, and they'd say, sit tight, kid, we're going to work together tonight, and then they come back and put me in something,
Right.
And it was so great for me, I didn't take it, I wasn't cocky, I didn't fuck with rubbing in anybody's face, especially Sam's,
Right.
So then I happened upon Tom Rocky Stone out of Milwaukee, who was responsible for booking extras for AWA and WWF then at the time.
Uh-huh.
And I worked a show or two of his, and he liked me, and he wanted to bring me to do those jobs,
Right.
And as a result of that, man, I got booked as a green kid against Mike George on that big Sports Channel Budweiser-sponsored AWA event at the Odeum. Do you remember that?
Yeah, vaguely, yes.
Well, that was a big deal, and it was live on Sports Channel. And here's Sports Channel. Was Sports Channel anything when you were young?
Yes.
Okay. So, that was a big deal at the time to be live on Sports Channel,
Right.
So then that's where I got to know more people, and I started to ingratiate myself with Pat Tanaka, and Pat Tanaka put me over, Pat would step out and say, even though he hadn't worked with me, he said, I watch your work, you're fucking good, And if nobody tells you this today, you're appreciated here,
Right.
So I said, fuck it, I'm going to take a shot. And I says, Patrick, do you know how I could do this for a fucking living? I want to go out somewhere and learn, you know? So being in this area, we didn't have Portland television. We didn't have Memphis television. So we didn't know about those places, you know?
Right.
Pat just gave me the talk. Well, you got to commit to that shit. If you're going to buy names on it, you better fucking show up and you better make me look good, you know?
Right.
So he said, he fucked with me, man, and he got with me and watched my shit, went over my shit, so, you know, took my picture and said, we'll present it to Portland and we'll present it to Memphis. You want to go to Memphis because you seem to really want to learn, and they wrestle every fucking night.
Right.
So one way, shape, or form, Patrick pretty much spearheaded a picture of me that I had taken that made me look gargantuan.
Huh.
And he told him I was 260 pounds. and I went along with it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I show up after hernia surgery, about 197 pounds at the Mid-South Coliseum. You know, for a 3-day tryout. You know? And the rest is history. I ended up staying. But, you know, it's funny because at some point, Jerry told somebody, you know, he was still laughing about it, Casey, because he would say, you know, what do you do with a kid like that? You know, with those kind of balls, what do you do with them? He goes, you fucking book them.
Right.
You know, so in a way, it was a really, I got respect right off the bat with that goofy kind of work, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's how they operated. They respected that shit. And I did it on purpose, but I kind of fell into it too.
Right.
You know? But anyway, they liked the thinking and the fact that I just was not going to leave. You know?
Yeah.
I was going to get this shit no matter what, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So then, you know, the first time in, they gave me a lot of shit, man. I mean, a lot of shit. And I took this shit, you know. I mean, everybody gave me a lot of shit, but goddamn it, I kept getting a booking sheet every week, you know.
Right.
And I guess that's when I realized, Casey, that and I heard it with the old timers I was with, if they didn't give a fuck and they didn't see anything in me, like we say today, they would have said, yeah, great match, kid, and walked away.
Right.
You know, like we say today with that shit. So that's when it started, you know. And then all of a sudden, when the light switch went off, looking back now, I see it. I didn't really see it then, but I see Jerry and all the old timers, except for Lawler, of course. Jerry and Dundee were good gauges for me. They start fucking popping like I'm fucking great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think the first time, and, you know, Jerry was always nice to me. He was, you know, always high and by. But I think the connection came where he called me one day at the hotel, and I was like, Jarrett's calling me. What the fuck? You know what I mean?
Right.
And he's like, Randy, have you heard of Tracy Smothers? And I had it, you know, and that wasn't me being a prick. I just never heard the motherfucker, you know?
Yeah.
And he said, he's a friend, and he's a really nice guy, and he's going to be teaming with one of the Jameses, or one of the Armstrongs, and going to WCW. They're going to try to do something with him. And he's a really nice guy, but he's very unconfident, like you were when you got here. And he said one of the things that makes him unconfident is he was trained by Candy Divine. And the boys have always given him shit about it. But I like him, and he's a friend. And he said he's going to come in for the next 2 weeks to get some ring time, and I'd like you to work with him.
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, wow, that was pretty fucking cool.
Right, yeah.
You know, so that's when it kind of started, you know. My first time meeting Jared, you know about that story?
I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, this was cool. So I'm with Robert Fuller, and Rob was always like, you're with me, kid. Don't worry about it. We're going to go get our paychecks early in Hendersonville. What do you mean? We're going to go to Jerry's house. I'm like, oh, I'm going to wait in the car.
Yeah.
Come, son, you know. So I'm like, man. So we pull up, and there's Bill Dundee out there playing with Jerry's guard Doberman.
Yeah.
And this dog was a purebred, mean motherfucker that only liked Bill Dundee. Probably because Bill and that fucking dog were the same in personality, you know?
All right.
He's like, what the fuck are you doing here, kid? You know, stay in the car, you know? So he puts the dog away. And Rob's like, come on, son. Let's go in and say hello to Jerry and get paychecks, you know? So I walk in and there's Jeff, Jerry, Bill, and Jerry Lawler.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fucking, you want to talk about jerky? You think I'm fucking jerky? You should have seen me that day. And Jeff looks over at me and he's got a big dumb smile on his face. He goes, you know, he mouths, what are you doing here? I'm like, I don't know. And I'm pointing at Rob. So, you know, Rob says, what are we talking about today, boys? Like, Rob's on the booking committee now because he's been sober a week. You know?
Yeah. What are we talking?
And Jerry's frustrated because he's trying to get down to business, but he finally just says, well, Rob, we're trying to figure out how to bust this territory back open again, you know?
Yeah.
And I goes, well, the kid said it himself. Our biggest issue is Jerry the King Lawler ain't no heel down here. He's never going to get no heat. Even the kid says it. And they're all glaring at me, and I'm like, oh, my God, Rob.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, man, that was some funny shit. But you could tell Jerry was not happy, and they looked at me like I just said it in front of them, and Rob exaggerated what I said. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was trying to figure out what's heat. I don't understand. Like, it seems like Jerry could fucking do anything to these people, to anybody in the territory, and half the fans are going to pop for him anyway. How? What do you mean heat? You know?
Right.
Oh, it's fucking funny. But, you know, at the end of the day, it was just that Jerry's legacy had been so that they're just always going to cheer whatever he did, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But fuck's sake, huh?
Yeah,
so anyway, that was really impressive, dude. I'd never seen anything like it. That motherfucker had a, like, swimming pool type moat around the mansion.
Oh, man, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And it was a really cool fucking Annabelle type house. It was fucking awesome with antiques every fucking where, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was so big and so immaculate. Like, how do you fucking keep a place like this clean? You know?
Oh, I'm sure there was somebody to do that.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, that's how it would happen. Like, he would make it a point to me to when he would go to the towns to spend a few minutes with me.
Yeah.
You know, or
How
TV.
often? What town did he go to? Any towns?
He didn't go to many towns at the time, nor TVs.
Really? He didn't go to TV all the time?
You know, one of the smartest things Jerry he said to me was, you know, Randy, everybody gives me so much credit about being the best promoter and being so smart. And he goes, I'm not that smart, but I am smart enough to put people in charge of things I know nothing about that are smarter than me.
Right. Yeah, that's, yeah. Yep, that's smart.
Really, man, you know, and him and Eddie, and I still say that was the real death of the territory, in my opinion. It wasn't so. I think that all entertainment started to dip.
Yeah.
And a lot of that had to do with losing the young crowd, the kids particularly, to video games.
Yeah.
You know, that's when they first started to not go out of the fucking house. You know?
Right.
The TV ratings were amazing, but they couldn't draw like they used to draw. And I think part of that is just life. The way things were, and, you know, the circle that wrestling has been, well, it's been stuck in a long time now, the cycle.
Yeah.
But I don't think that those guys learned to optimize. You know,
Yeah.
And I think then it was a double-edged sword because I watch all this other shit in regards to entertainment, Casey. I think they thought if they didn't run the Mid-South in Memphis, then they looked like second rate. Even though they
Right.
might not have been able to afford the Mid-South.
Yeah, do you know what the rent was on the Mid-South?
I don't. I know it was the best deal you could possibly get because of their commitment there. They kept
ran their
that building open. But the point
Oh,
is,
I don't doubt that.
when you're working on a third to the company, a third to building and promotion, and a third to talent, it's a fucking fine line to make any money.
Right.
You know what I mean? There were other buildings they could have picked because they ran those instead sometimes of the Mid-South when the Mid-South had something else in there.
Yeah.
You know, and no matter what, as we learned together in Puerto Rico, your TV can be white hot, but if you don't have somebody on the ground promoting locally, there's more to it than just TV.
Uh-huh.
And the last guy they had was Jeff's granddad, Eddie Marlin. You know, and they never groomed somebody after Eddie. And Eddie was a hard-working motherfucker. I don't know when he slept, man. You know?
Yeah.
But he would run those towns. He was basically in charge at the shows. He would sell tickets, and in half the spot towns, he would sell concessions, too.
Man, that's crazy.
But think about that. He was responsible for basically promoting the first three towns, Memphis, Louisville, and Evansville, promoted themselves because they've been going so long. But all the spot towns, he'd have to book the building and then make the trips out there.
Right, right.
And even if he had somebody to hang the posters and all that bullshit, he still had to go out there and hand them to him. We didn't FedEx things.
Right.
And then think about it, dude. He had to do that for the month, not just that week.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Yeah, man. I don't know when that motherfucker slept. But he was a machine, and Jerry was a machine, and those two kept in constant contact.
Yeah.
You know, you get the Stooge report, and, you know, what was really cool is Eddie started passing me messages from Jerry, particularly about me.
Uh-huh.
Remember when I told you, and I tell the guys that were training all the time, I was always fucking nervous as all hell, you know? But the first people I learned to work was the office. They didn't know.
Right,
you know?
right. Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So after a couple months when I started to get it, and the light bulb started to go off over my head, mostly because of the direction of Robert Fuller, Eddie would say, "Come here, kid," and he would grab me like you would grab your girlfriend when you're pissed at her, you know?
Right.
And he'd say, "Me and Little Man," and that, you know, that's what the old timers called Jerry, was Little Man. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, Tojo, Jackie Fargo, Eddie Marlin. I would never call him motherfucking Little Man. You know? But
right.
The guys that broke him in and taught him this industry referred to him as Little Man. He'd say, "Little Man wanted me to tell you, fucking, you know, stop." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Look at it. When you come out of that fucking door, when you come out of that entranceway, man, have your fucking head up. You get in the ring and everything's fine. But we could tell when you come walking out, you're fucking insecure." I'm like, wow,
sure.
they busted me, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so little things like that.
Good advice.
Yep. One time they tried to build up this guy named Big O, who was a
Big O?
Yeah, he was a job guy down there, but he looked like $1 million fucking dollars.
Uh-huh.
And they tried to get me to carry him on TV one day. He was dumb, man. He wasn't even trained, you know, I don't think.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to see, they were looking for guys that Jerry could fuck with that they wouldn't have to bring in and try to build their own guy.
Uh-huh.
So because of the body and size alone, he stood out, you know?
Yeah.
And Eddie told me, and this is a favor to Jerry. I know he's the fucking shits, Jarrett. I know he's the shits. Try to fucking get 8 to 10 minutes out of him, and he was fucking terrible, you know.
Yeah.
I couldn't even get him over, man, and I was really good, you know. And then nothing happened from there. But the cool thing about it is he pulled me aside and said, "Yeah, we're going to give you an extra 100 this week. Here it is for trying to carry that guy." This is from the little man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I would get little things like that when I was a kid down there. I was like, this is fucking, you know, what an honor, you know.
Right. Oh, for sure. For sure.
And then I'll talk about my next, you know, how my relationship expanded with Jerry. But did you ever meet Jerry?
Yeah, I met Jerry a few times.
When's the first time? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was one of Bert's shows.
You
When
didn't.
when TNA was first starting, when TNA was just opening its doors. So
One
Jerry was
second.
around.
1 second. When I brought you, did you ever go down with me to Nashville?
You know what? No, I don't think so. No.
Okay, I sent you down. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think that's the first. I think that's the first time I met him.
Okay.
I think that's the first time.
How green were you?
Oh, really green.
Yeah.
Really green. Yeah. You know, they were just doing stuff, you know, it was Bert's show, but they were using it to probably start to work on their production for their show. And, they were kind of just using Bert's, television to do that.
So let me tell you how I started sending guys down there again before we get any further with yours. I'm not trying to cock block you.
No. There's not much of a story. I just said hello and, you know, I was pretty nervous and, you know.
So before, so at one point, Jerry fucking hated wrestling. This was before TNA.
Yeah.
He's like, "I've looked in the crystal ball, Randy. It's over. Wrestling is done. It's done.
Yeah.
It hurts me to say it. I know you guys love it. I love it. But it's done. It's done." He goes,
Yeah.
"I got into a backwards way into construction. And I can't tell you the kind of money that is in construction with a lot less stress. Hell, Randy, Eddie Marlin's up on the hill right now operating a fucking backhoe." He goes, "I think you and Jeff should say fuck it to wrestling and come to work for me in construction."
Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, you know.
You should have.
Yeah, man. No. Well, so what finally happens there, though, and this is for a couple of years, you know, and I call him as I was starting out my company, our company, and I knew that this thing couldn't grow without some sort of rubs, something that made us stand out. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I would hit Jerry up for ideas and things like that, you know, and television and all that shit before I did it, you know.
Yeah.
And he'd tell me everything, tell me all this great shit. And he'd go, "Why are we wasting the last hour on this? Wrestling's dead. Come down here and work for me in construction."
Yeah.
You know, but he would spend an hour and 90 minutes giving me a lesson.
Right.
You know, giving me a fucking TED talk. You know,
Mm-hmm.
It was great, you know. And then he called me one day out of the blue and said, "Randy, this is insane. I told Jeff he's fucking crazy, but Jeff took $1 million of his own money and he's trying to make a go with this wrestling company with just weekly pay-per-views, no shows, no house shows. What are your thoughts?" And I was like, wow, you know, that was pretty fucking cool. You know?
What'd Jerry think?
He thought he was insane. But he
Yeah.
respected the fact that Jeff took $1 million of his own dollars and risked it.
Well, Jerry was involved then, wasn't he?
No, he wasn't. first it was Jeff thinking, and Jeff goes into a long dissertation about how nobody understood, especially Paul E. This is how Paul E.'s company died. They didn't understand about the pay-per-view buys. You know, those buys you don't get the money on. You're lucky if you walk away with 40% of the actual buys. Then you're only getting, when you take away the costs and the other bullshit in the contract, 30% to 40% of the buys, and that's a loser every time.
Yeah.
TNA Wrestling, TNA Impact needed 27,000 buys on a pay-per-view, Casey, just to break even.
Yeah.
And they'd only done that once in the history of the company.
Well, what was Jerry doing at, well, he was still around, though. He had to have some sort of, he was there in some sort of official capacity with TNA when they first opened.
Well, here's what happened. Here's how that happened. And he and I were talking at the time. Now, he would go ahead and he would go down and watch them. And it was really a clusterfuck. Those early pay-per-views at the fairgrounds before they had any television deal were a total 100% clusterfuck. That's when Jerry said to me, dude, Jerry was the first one to tell me, because he would call me and I would call him, and he would say, it's a fucking clusterfuck. The animals are running the zoo. Randy, do you know why the animals can't run the zoo? You know? And then he would hit me back and say, do you remember when I had Eddie there? Do you remember in this part of the towns when Bill was Booker, that was part of his responsibility. Eric Embryo is part of his responsibility. There's nothing like that here. And my son has just lost $1 million, and I think it's time that I step in and save the day. And I was like, Jerry, they keep pulling you back in. This is great, you know.
Right.
So then another call was, we can't bring in these bloated, fat guys and have them do things the way they were accustomed to do them at WCW. They don't listen, and it's a shit product. Hell, they're trying to do pay-per-view. That's not even a good TV. And oh my God, they bring in too goddamn many of them. And I never heard of this one or that one, and I don't get why the fuck they mean anything. And obviously they don't mean anything because, Randy, the truth is, we're only selling 300 tickets at the fairgrounds to see these idiots live. How is that going to project in a pay-per-view interest?
Right.
You know? And then he went on and started to scout talent that they didn't have to overpay and make their own stars.
Right.
And then he said, I know you're training guys. Are there any that are worth this yet that are marketable on a national level? I said, well, they're green, man, you know, but I brought down and he asked me to come down because he wanted me to work. And I brought down the first time, long time, a couple other guys and the twins.
Yeah.
And this other guy, I forget his name, Jason Pellegrini.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
looked like a sawed-off Goldberg, you know?
Right.
Well, after we went down once or twice, it was the coolest thing in the world because afterwards and before, Jerry was up in the cheap seats at the fairgrounds with Eddie's brother, and some other people of consequence. They were business people, not wrestling people. He was scouting for money. Jerry was really good at garnering investors, angels, and venture capitalists. He had just a fucking Rolodex of really important motherfuckers, Casey.
I bet.
Yeah. So, the first time I met Eddie Marlin's brother, you swear to Christ they were twins. It was hilarious.
Really?
Yeah, even dressed the same. But
what'd he do?
Oh, Eddie had such a good eye. You know, a lot of wrestlers.
Eddie's brother.
I don't think anything. I think it was just an old bored guy who was hanging out with Eddie.
Oh, okay. You know? All right. Well, go ahead. Yeah.
So anyway, I came back up there after, and he goes, let me tell you what I see. And I'm like, sure. That long-time kid, if he can listen, he's green, but if he can listen, he's got a future in this industry. And he was doing that Night of the Roxbury gimmick.
Right.
And Maddie was getting a lot of extra work at WWE at the time, and dark matches, you know, because I got him booked there.
Yeah.
And he was 230 with a fucking 34-inch waist, so he looked good, you know?
Right.
And then he said, and Randy, I know you don't want to work, but I love that singing gimmick. I love that singing gimmick. God damn it, I love that. You know, we could do a lot with that. I swear to God, what we're going to do is we're going to bring you out there, and I see you coming out singing, and I'm going to have actual church choir women backing you up. He just loved it. He goes, where did you come up with that? I go, what do you mean, where did I come up with that? In 91, Jerry, that was you. You gave me a call and said one of the Armstrong kids was going to leave WWE because he couldn't quit smoking pot. And you called me and said, can you sing? I said, yeah. He goes, good, because I told Vince McMahon you could sing. He wants a country singing music gimmick. I said, that's where the light bulb went off. He goes, son of a bitch, I remember that now, you know. You know, so then I didn't really aspire to be a performer, and the truth be known, he didn't know, and nobody knew that my left knee was fucked.
Right.
You know, I just went out there and did what I do, but around that left knee. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, whatever the fuck. But, you know, then they started taping, and Jerry was a big proprietor of what basically happened, dude, was Jeff lost all his money when he learned the hard way and paid to learn the hard way. And Jerry would say that, my son learned the hard way, but hey, those are the best lessons learned.
Yeah, that's for sure. Absolutely.
You know, my son bought a bad bill of goods, not because he's dumb, because he was given half the information.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the other thing is Jerry wouldn't run him down. He wouldn't run Jeff down. He had nothing but respect for Jeff because, you know, he would then go into a story of an actual time where he learned the hard way.
Right.
And the fact that it's okay to fail and learn the hard way, it's part of the process.
You have to fail.
Yeah, which was pretty cool for me to learn in real time.
Nobody bats 1,000.
No, I always say that too. What did the great Ted Williams bat? 4 and change, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's what I really enjoyed about Jerry. The thing is that Jerry couldn't tell Jeff those things. They didn't speak like that.
Yeah.
You know, and that was kind of sad, but very common in relationships and father-son relationships.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
You know, but, you know, that's how Jerry got involved, and Jerry got involved with money, and then along came the Carters, you know.
Right.
Along came the Carters, you know.
Yeah, so the Carters weren't involved in the beginning?
No, man. I can't remember the exact. And actually, now that I think about it, I heard the story from Jerry, not Jeff at first. Dixie and Jeff were acquaintances, you know?
Yeah.
And they actually reconnected or recognized each other in the parking lot of the Jarrett's condo in Dallas, Texas.
Uh-huh.
They had a condo in Dallas. Jerry had a condo in Dallas because he was trying to make a go with World Class and USWA. And I always thought, well, that's kind of weird because neither one's drawing that good. But there was more to it than that. Jerry was the first guy offered wrestling on USA in that Monday spot before Raw and Vince McMahon were.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so that's why he bought a condo, because that would have required him to spend half of his time down there. But, you know, that was a behind the scenes thing that Jerry, he was one of those guys that wouldn't talk full bore about something because he didn't want it to leak out until it had legs and they knew what the fuck was what, because he didn't want to have egg on his face.
Right.
If it didn't work.
Sure, that's smart.
Yeah. The other thing that was smart is it didn't pay off in this scenario, but it probably did in the end, because he probably sold that condo for a fucking lot more than he paid for it. But he would also say before something was inked, we're going to need this. That's the first thing we should do so that when we hit the ground running, we're not looking for a condo or a place to set up.
Right.
He was pretty sharp that way too.
Yeah.
I guess what people really want to know or need to know about is the haps with this. So Jerry's a part of that, and it drove me nuts because, whenever I would see Jeff, I had a really good relationship with Jeff in the beginning, but we're the same age. And the way I carried myself, and Jeff had just a great sense of humor, and he never acted like the boss's fucking son.
Right.
And he had things in perspective pretty good. Quick story before we get into that. So, you remember Chris Champion, yeah?
Yeah.
And Ronnie P. Gossett.
Yeah.
Before you or I leave this territory, I will have blown you. How does that feel to know this? But anyway, that was something else. So at the time, sometimes I wouldn't ride with Rob, and then I was riding with Ronnie. So unbeknownst to the company, we could have got fired for this, and it was the big kayfabe, and Chris and especially Ronnie were nervous wrecks. We liked to stay with Miss Anita in Holly Springs, Mississippi. We were on the Memphis side of the territory. And she was so good to us, and she's such a great cook. But anyway, Chris would be there, and the big kayfabe was nobody knew, even the boys, that the baby face was staying with the heels at Miss Anita's.
Right.
So Ronnie and Chris thought I was greener than I was. And one night, Ronnie started it. They decided to make me paranoid about the sexual predators in pro wrestling. And Chris jumped on board because they just thought it would be fun to terrorize me. And you know how I sell. I sell everything,
Right.
It was hilarious how they were trying to convince me to let Ronnie blow me.
Yeah.
But I played along. Yeah. I was not that green. I'd already been smartened up to that shit. So like, don't worry. It's not a big deal, and then they're like, everybody does it, and I'm like,
right.
Chris, you did? Right. He goes, yeah, Ronnie, you blown me. Remember? I knew that bullshit. You know what I mean? It doesn't make you gay. It doesn't make you gay. It's just part of the game. Yeah. You got to play ball,
Yeah, play ball.
And they tell me, everybody you knew has played ball. I'm like, nuh-uh. And then they come up with a funny story and say, even my hero, Handsome Jimmy, played ball.
Oh, yeah.
And then I saw it, and I'm like, no, please don't tell me these things. I don't want to know,
Yeah.
Well, then all of a sudden I said, what about Jeff Jarrett? You know how I am like, who would win in a fight? When you're playing, it's funny because I can keep that shit going all night,
Yeah.
Well, this was what straight guy got blown by a predator, which is even funner, I mean,
right.
TV's in a couple hours and we're still up playing this fucking game while I'm selling and they're laughing their asses off. And they think I'm buying it. I'm really afraid,
Right.
So one way, shape, or form, they alluded to the fact that both Jeff and Jerry had taken the head from a predator. So then we go do TV. Then we do the Mid-South Coliseum. And then I was running with Ronnie and he pissed me off,
Yeah.
And we're at the Louisville Gardens on a Tuesday. And I said, fuck this. I'm tired of taking Ronnie's shit. But I can't say fuck you. I'm tired of taking your shit,
Right.
So Jeff gets to the building late, later than us. And he come in and say hello. And I go, and Ronnie's in there with me and Jeff. And that's the time I go, Jeff, talk to me about this. How am I not gay if I take head from a gay guy? He's like, what? I'm like, well, Ron says that you and your dad did it. And I know you and your dad aren't gay. And Ronnie flips fucking shit, man. Chris Champion told him that.
Chris Champion.
And I go, fuck you, Ronnie. I fucking know better. You know what I mean? It was funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it was hilarious. And it got back to Dad, too, you know?
Yeah.
But they didn't get mad because they knew how Ron was.
Right, right.
You know, they just took it all in stride and laughed like hell. And it was just Ron trying to extort a fucking young guy in the business, but it blew up on him, you know?
Yeah.
And what's funny is Chris Champion walked away unscathed.
Right.
Yeah, so anyway, then what happens is they're in this relationship where Jeff and Jerry are getting something. Jeff is getting money as a senior vice president. I don't know if Jerry was a senior vice president, but he was probably getting half of what Jeff was getting as a consultant with some power. You know what I mean? Because it was originally their idea. Jerry was very good at hiring people that were real good with contracts. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And, you know, at the time, I'm my own guy. I had angel investors that originally wanted to go into where Vince is now 20 years ago, into the United Arab Emirates and 7 other countries in Saudi, or, you know, in Arabia, Arab countries. Because they've wanted their own wrestling product for that long. And you can't go over there and do business as an American. You have to have somebody that they know that they've been working with fuck with you. That's how they operate. To this day, it took Vince 20 years to bust that market.
Right.
You know, and now he has his own relationship. And there's some truth to the fact that Vince was never going to sell to them, but they want their own company.
Right, right.
They do. They want their own company. And they wanted it from back then. And then, you know, 911 hits and all bets were off.
Yeah.
You know, so then that's when you were down in Puerto Rico. And this is another thing you probably didn't know at the time, but I had real money and a real angel and a real venture capitalist interested. The angel was spending his money to be reimbursed by the venture capitalist to take what was going on in Puerto Rico, even then, Casey, and then fucking exploiting it to the world.
Right.
You know, real money, real people, you know?
Yeah.
And we're non-wrestling people, and for whatever reason, after they put some money into it, they wanted to pull when I wanted to push. They wanted me to sit in a holding pattern. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you. I've been fucking with this for 2 years. I'm going down.
Right. Right.
So then when that relationship ended, I was beating my head against the wall. You know, when Victor died, that fucked everything up in Puerto Rico. I had spent 1 year with that motherfucker ingratiating myself. And we had a letter of intent, man, which nobody gets a letter of intent from Victor Quinones. And nobody gets a letter of intent from Victor Quinones. Well, Victor Quinones is the businessman. Luke Williams even said, mate, I've never seen anything like this. He doesn't behave like this. How are you doing? I'm like, I'm just talking about making money, man. You know?
Right.
So at that point, that's when Jeff and Jerry were at odds. And I didn't understand what was what. I don't understand why. I would talk to Jeff from time to time. I would talk to Jerry from time to time, but I never got into the particulars. And I didn't know how bad it was, and I didn't know that the internet wrestling community was making it worse. Honestly, your Bob Riders and your Bill Apters talking about, like, when they would talk to one of those guys or get some inside skinny, they would make that shit worse. Well, at the time, because it was so sensitive, if it would come across Jeff or Jerry, if they would read that shit, they would get even madder at the other guy.
Right.
It's not that they were stupid. It's just it was a painful fucking situation.
Yeah.
You know? So, because of my history with Jeff and Jerry and the fact that, you know, I was so close to Jerry, I fucking said, fuck the fucking non-wrestling people. Rather than suck their ass and get them back, I am going to call for a meeting with Jerry and hit him up with what the fuck I've been up to with Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
You know, since Victor died. You know, Jerry could look at that situation and say it's kind of not bad. He wouldn't be happy that Victor died, but he's like, okay, we have somebody that's hormonally imbalanced and mentally irregular out of the equation. Now we can do business. The facts of the business are this. When I finally went and met with Jerry, and I want to say Summer Attitude 2000, was that a big show? It was one of their DVDs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really big, well done show.
Right.
This was about 04. Yeah, so it was only 4 years old, you know?
Right.
So we pop it in, you know, I'm going to the mansion. The mansion hadn't changed at all. The only thing that changed is that Jerry's up on a hill. This entire neighborhood around the moat's filled in, and Jerry's up there like he's God looking down on Hendersonville. But nothing had changed. It was beautiful and pristine, you know?
Right.
So I'm sitting there with Jerry, just me and him. I pop in that DVD. 5 minutes in, he hits pause and says, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And I'm like, "What's that, Jerry?" "A crowd where 70% of the fans react like they think it's real and the other 30% go along with it because it's too fun."
Right.
He said, "Exactly. That's something Vince doesn't fucking have."
Right.
You know? And goddamn, he lit up like a Roman candle, Casey. Within 1 week, he had that shit presented to Mark Cuban at HD Net, which was then HD Net Fights. Within a week. And they wanted to buy
I'm surprised before that Dutch never reached out to Jerry about doing something down there, because Dutch was down there.
Dutch don't think like that. Dutch was with TNA, bro.
No, before TNA, when he was booking for IWA.
They don't think like that.
Even Carlos.
Dutch is brilliant when it comes to booking and creative. But let's say, for example, remember when Dutch got let go and We the People was still popular?
Yeah.
Dutch never thought about the fact that how hot that would have been in fucking Mexico. And he didn't know that he could have gone to Mexico. I had to come up with that. That's what I'm good at, you know. That's what separates what makes me valuable in this industry is I think beyond that. I don't think like a performer or just a booker.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? There's nothing deficient about Dutch. It's just out of the realm of what he fucking does. What he's used to. Creature of habit, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, man, that's what happened. And it's been an hour now, so why don't we do 2 parts? We'll do next week where we'll go from there. But the bottom line is within 1 week, that had happened, and Dollar General was ready to pay $1 a DVD. The entire Dollar General, $1 a DVD then, for Summer Attitude.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Isn't that something?
Yeah. Jeez.
Which would then be considered 44, would have been considered a hammer shit at the time because of the age.
Right. Man. Jeez.
I'm going to shut up and let you close, and then I'll do the official pimping close.
Well, it's just it's a rough week for Memphis. I'll say that. The King and Jerry. Not to make light of it, but geez, it's kind of a bummer. But yeah, I mean, Jerry, what a pivotal piece in the history of wrestling for sure. You know,
I've got so much more for next week, and I hope somebody gives a shit about this. And this is the other difference, and this is why eventually PPW or whatever we end up calling it, our company is going to be something. And this is why I can fucking call them fucking idiots, because this guy really was, Jerry was, just the most successful promoter and the company owner in the history of the industry.
Yeah, one of for sure. I mean, geez.
A one-off.
to run, to run weekly and
In
to
the
have the
same
success
towns.
that they did. Huh?
In the same towns, man.
Right. That's weak. Yeah. Yeah. In the same towns. That's tough. That's really hard to do.
Yep. So where we're leaving off, guys, is where the friction started with Jeff and Jerry, and I was in the middle of that, and then we'll talk about this is right when I was going to go to work for TNA. And, it's really cool, dude. I like this shit. I want to really honor Jerry. And Jerry, again, like I said, was a friend. Whether I knew it or not at the time, I was attracted to him because I left home at 15, and he was a father figure.
Yeah.
Well, please note, there are no YouTube ads on this son bitch, so please help support us. Premier Pro Wrestling and Pro Wrestling T. Subscribe to our Pivot Share. And please, more importantly, we got even more content on our Patreon, Premier Pro Wrestling on Patreon.
Patreon, yes.
All right, fucker. So yeah,
so
we got to get
next
going.
Next week will be part 2.
Yeah.
We'll delve into more of the Jerry Jarrett and your relationship with him. So that'll be good.
All right, hot dog.
All right.